Hey, what's up? I'm Rafael de Furia, aka Rafi is me, and I am back at it again on another beautiful Friday night. And this Friday, we are going to be talking about some things that you really should try to avoid doing if you're planning to come here and live in Italy. But before we get into the video, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian citizenship, and more, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like, I would really appreciate that. But let's get on to this subject. A lot of you send me emails, private messages across social media, and it's ended up to getting to the point where it's probably a few hundred messages per month. Sometimes I'm a bit surprised myself, so I'm sorry if I'm not always able to respond to every message. And there are a lot of messages that I get that would be very easily answered by going through some of my videos. I realize that there are quite a few. Just in the past year alone, I've uploaded about 56-ish, I think this would be 57 videos now. So to go through all of the content, I realize it can be a bit of an undertaking. So if you did message me about some of these things and I've referred you to the videos, please don't be offended. Or if I refer you to this video, also please don't be offended. Down in the more info section below, I'll also post a link to a playlist that I have of the videos that are probably the most relevant to actually moving here to Italy and the questions that I get about it. And this video was inspired by a recent message that I got. It kind of wraps up a lot of the questions that I get in one way or the other. Some of these are going to be more relevant to people who are interested in Iure Sanguinis, Italian citizenship by birth, but there are also some questions that are going to be relevant to everybody. And the information is going to be mixed throughout the video, so be sure to watch the whole thing. I'm gonna need my glasses for this one. So, ciao Rafael. It's now 9 months since I submitted all of my documents to the consulate. I'll leave the name of the consulate out. And I understand that legally, they are allowed to take up to 2 years. I may lose my mind in 2 years if I have to wait that long. One thing I will say is be very happy that it's only 2 years and that they didn't ask you for more documents at this point in time. There are certain processes, especially now for people who are not of Italian descent, who are wanting to apply for Italian citizenship, where the process can now take up to 4 years. Also, in my own case, everything took 14 years. So really, 2 years, you're doing all right. 2 years will go by faster than you realize, but I do understand how stressful and how crazy it can make you feel at times. And like I've said before in past videos, this process is a very, very good lesson in patience. Something that for sure changed my life in more ways than just one. Going back to the message now. So here's what I decided to do. Because I'm moving to Italy in next March, I may or may not receive my dual citizenship by the time I leave. And this person is planning to leave the US in the middle of February and then come to Italy towards the end of February. And just as a backup, this person made an appointment with the consulate for their area for December so they could get a tourist visa. Here's a few things. During this process, you really don't want to change your address. The only way that I would say maybe it could kind of be worth taking some time to come here to Italy is if you are able to keep the same mailing address. If you change that, you can throw things off by quite a bit. Your legal residence to the Italian government abroad or in Italy is a very important thing. And even if you're moving into Italy as an Italian citizen, you actually have to register where you live within a few days of moving there. And then in regards to making an appointment for a tourist visa to come to Italy, American citizens at this moment in time, and I'm going to assume you're an American citizen, but even if you're Canadian and a lot of other countries, you can just come to Italy and just go through the line and you'll just get a visa upon entry. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to make an arrangement. You don't have to make an appointment, but not all countries are this way. So double check. I can't speak about all countries, but if you're American, then you can basically just come here for up to 90 days. If you want to stay here longer than 90 days, this is a different situation. But I've also spoken to this person before, and this person has expressed interest to move to Italy. So this person continues on saying, the reason for getting a tourist visa is because I found an Airbnb room for rent for 3 months, but the woman I am renting from cannot give me a rental agreement for a year. This is very common in Italy. Again, if you watch my video about renting an apartment in Italy, a year contract is almost unheard of if you're looking to make a legal residence here. A normal term contract is 3 + 2 years, 5 years, or 4 + 4 years. And the reason why someone may not be so interested to do you a favor is because it costs them a lot of money. And for them to go ahead and register their apartment for 1 year will be very expensive for them. So this is part of why it's so uncommon. Also, one of the reasons why Airbnb hosts are not interested in going beyond the 90 days is because for a person to stay beyond that 90 days, it creates a different taxation situation, and it also gives them a certain set of legal rights to be able to get them out of the apartment. And also, if you're only coming here on a 90-day visa, then technically you can't even be here for longer than that period. Potentially you could extend this by going to the police, but it's not even guaranteed that you could do this. Very often they do it, but it doesn't always happen. Also, as somebody who's on a tourist visa in Italy, there will be almost nothing that you can really take care of here. You won't be able to get a phone contract, you won't be able to get a home internet contract, you won't be able to take care of really anything that has to do with everyday life here, credit cards, banking. Well, you could probably get a bank, but you would have to open it up as a foreign resident, and a lot of banks don't want to deal with foreign residents. But just before we get to the next part of the email, if you would like to help support make more videos like this possible on this YouTube channel, there are shirts available now. Pizza, pasta, and amore, all the different kinds of gelato. That's it, I'm moving to Italy, and more are available. And the sale of each shirt helps make more videos like these possible. So if you are looking for something, a stocking stuffer or a gift for Christmas, maybe even for yourself, be sure to check out the link down in the more info section below. But back to the questions. And now my question is, if I still don't have my dual citizenship by the end of the 3-month visa, can I go to Switzerland for 3 months? And 1, do I need a visa to go to Switzerland? And 2, how do I get back to Italy? Do I need another visa to return to Italy? And when and where do I apply for one? Or can I even go back once the 3 months have expired in Switzerland? I put the disclaimer before the intro to this video, but I want to reiterate, I'm not an Italian lawyer and I'm not a legal advisor. I'm not somebody who's out here that can give you any sort of real legal advice. So if you do have more detailed questions, I can refer you to an Italian lawyer who you can ask these questions to. I'm just sharing the information that I happen to know of based on personal experience or experiences that people have shared with me. In regards to traveling to Switzerland, a lot of people are interested in going to Switzerland or going to Croatia. These seem to be the 2 countries that people ask me about the most if they can travel there and then just come back to Italy. And while both countries are beautiful places to go, but for the purpose of resetting your legal status, neither one is gonna work for you technically. However, I have heard of people with certain passports not really being looked at twice when coming back into the country. But when it comes to Switzerland specifically, they are not a European Union country. However, they are a Schengen country. So that means if you enter into the Schengen zone, European Union, they are different, but in some ways they are the same. But that's another subject for a completely different video for a very different day. So that means a non-EU citizen can only be in the Schengen zone for 90 out of every 180 days. But then you have Croatia. They are currently EU, but I don't believe they are Schengen quite yet, but they are supposed to become Schengen soon. So, for example, if you come to Italy, you spend 89 days here, then you go and spend 1 day in Switzerland, Croatia, wherever. Those are your 90 days. So it's 3 months out of every 6 months. And then on your 91st day, it doesn't matter if you're in Switzerland, Italy, Croatia, anywhere within this zone, you will technically be an overstayer. And there could be ramifications for this. Not everybody experiences this, but some people do. And next year, when they introduce this new travel system, where especially for Americans, they'll need a visa waiver that they have to fill out, the system is going to probably get a bit more strict. And it seems like they'll have a shared system, and it seems like it'll be easier for them to do more thorough checks onto a person when they come in and out of the Schengen zone and the EU. But at this point in time, an American citizen, to my knowledge, has no need to apply for a visa to get into Switzerland, just like getting into the Schengen area. You can just kind of show up and get a visa upon arrival. However, that will sort of change next year. You won't need a visa, but you will need to sign up for the visa waiver program. And when I say next year, I am talking about 2019. But things are always in motion, and there could be changes that come. So, staying 90 days in Italy, going to Switzerland, sorry, but it's probably not going to work. You may be able to stay here, but you wouldn't necessarily be staying here legally. As an American citizen, that is. If you're an Italian citizen, then this is a different story, but this is one of the reasons why you may not necessarily want to leave your country until you have everything 100% taken care of. I can understand the want and the desire to come here, but it's better if you can wait until you're fully documented as an Italian before you actually come here. Say, for example, you're here, 90 days, and your citizenship was accepted and confirmed on the 89th day, but you're here on the 91st day and you're wanting to go back to America, and your name gets pinged on the way out, and they start asking you questions. How are you going to prove you're an Italian citizen if you don't have your documents on you? Okay, yes, you could tell them where you're registered, how you're registered, the name of the comune where you're registered, the consulate, all of these sorts of things. But for them to go through all of that information is only going to add aggravation and time to your travel. And even if you wanted to come back into Europe and you ended up coming back on your American passport, for example, even though as an Italian citizen, you are allowed to come back here, there could end up being a few unnecessary bumps in the road just because of a simple mistake. But continuing with the email, I just discovered I cannot get a permesso di soggiorno under a tourist visa. Is that true? Yeah. It is, sadly. Italy seems to have the preference of wanting to check people before they arrive here. In some ways, I can actually say this would be understandable, but it is actually in some ways easier for them to be able to deal with you and to be able to process your papers if you do it from your country, if you're not a citizen. But if you apply in the place where you're covered under their jurisdiction, they're going to be more familiar with your papers, the type of papers you have, and how to process them and to be able to actually read them. Just like how in America, it would be probably very unlikely that an American clerk would be able to read an Italian document. Continuing with the message. So then what do I do while I'm in Italy? Enjoy your time here, because that's basically really all you can do under a tourist visa. I don't mean to be harsh, but this is kind of the reality. Is it legal to stay without the permesso? Yes. As a tourist, you can stay here for 90 days out of every 180 days, 3 months out of every 6 months. But it doesn't entitle you to anything here. You wouldn't be able to get healthcare here, and to get an apartment would be basically impossible unless you wanted to get a less than legal apartment. And if you were to get your citizenship taken care of while you're in that apartment, you would not be able to make that apartment your residence here in Italy, which could hold you back from things like actually getting registered under the national health care. Continuing with the message, I don't want to ignore the whole permesso thing and leave it for whatever reason and then not be allowed back in. But responding to that one sentence, this is one of the reasons why I could say if I were in your position, I would for sure be waiting to get all of my documents, at the very least my Italian passport, before coming here, because coming here without it could potentially be a pretty big headache. It's also complicated, and sometimes my head feels like it's going to explode. Welcome to my world. Even for me, even though I've made quite a few videos on these subjects, they can still be complicated for me at times, and sometimes I have to rewatch my own videos just to do a little refresher. Even recently, I actually had to sadly watch part of one of my own videos about going to the emergency room because there was just one piece of information I didn't totally remember. But then the person in the email asked, could I go to Rome and plead my case since that's where I'm told my documents are? It doesn't really matter where your documents are. If you're doing a 1948 case, Rome is the only place to plead a case because you actually have to go to the court there. But if you're doing just regular iure sanguinis, you could technically go to the comune where you're applying through. However, in a place like Rome, things are more likely going to take longer. In general, bigger cities, things take longer because they're under a larger workload. But even if you go there, you could potentially go and try to talk to them, but unless your Italian is perfect and you can have a good conversation with them or have somebody there to speak to them on your behalf that is familiar with this, that's not going to ruin things for you, you could, but you don't necessarily want to push them. The thing is, once you actually submit your documents, that's basically it. I mean, there's very little that can be done at that point. After a year, I would say, maybe if it were a smaller comune, you could call them up and say, hi, I just wanted to see if it was possible to check in, if there was any updates, if my file had been entered into the system, anything along those lines, potentially, if it were a smaller comune. But if we're talking about someplace like Rome, it could take a little longer. But with these sorts of things, it's so unknown that it's hard to say for sure one way or the other how long it's going to take and when things will be finished, because it could be finished tomorrow or it could be finished in a year from now. I would say though, if you don't hear anything by 2 years, then that's the point to become concerned. That's the point then to start making a little bit of a fuss. But the thing is, you want to be very careful about how you approach these things, because on the other side, these are people who are very overworked and have a lot of responsibilities on their back. Then the email continues on, asking me if I have any ideas. Really, what I would say, like I've been saying throughout this video, is if you can wait, it's better to wait. I know it's probably the last thing that you want to hear. You could try to come here. Like, I'm not saying don't, but I'm not saying that it's going to be the best idea if you're wanting to have a smooth transition into life here in Italy. There are things you're not going to be able to get started on until your process is finished with. And this would be the same thing that I would say to anybody who's wanting to come to Italy, is that there are a lot of people, even who are not of Italian descent, but just want to move here. And a lot of people are just thinking that you can hop on a plane, arrive here, and yay, I'm living in Italy, but it's not quite that easy. You really need to make sure that all of your documents and everything is taken care of before you come here. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to do a lot of things once you arrive other than enjoy your time. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but to actually lay a foundation for your life, you won't be able to work here. It will be nearly impossible to get a long-term rent apartment unless you're wanting to purchase something. But even purchasing in Italy doesn't guarantee you the right to stay here. But from what I've heard, it does look good on the application. And going back again to traveling outside of the European Union and then coming back into the European Union. The system used to be that you could just go outside of Italy and then just cross the border, come back, get stamped, and everything would be fine. And that's the way that things used to be. And actually, I remember looking at the law at one point, and technically, according to Italian law, at least this was as of about, say, 7 to 8 years ago, that technically, this was the Italian law at the time, but European Union law or any laws that would contradict the Italian law, the European Union law, and in this case, the Schengen Accords would trump and negate the Italian law. So, for example, if you were here 90 days, on the 90th day you left, and then on the 91st day you arrive in the US, and on the 92nd day, you want to come back here. You could possibly be refused entry on the way back in, because within this period of 180 days, within 6 months, you would have already stayed the maximum time that you're allowed to be here. The days don't have to be 90 days in a row. It could be 10 days here, 30 days here, 40 days here, and so on, that you split these days up over this 180-day period. You're only allowed to be here for the maximum of 90 days. If you're wanting to go to Italy or really any country, I would say please do things right. Like, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Italian government. I'm saying as somebody who really wants to see other people succeed and have a good time abroad and enjoy their lives, it's going to make things so much easier for you. You're going to have so many fewer headaches to deal with if you make sure you take care of everything from the get-go. I realize this will add time, but it's better to have the little bit of extra time at the beginning rather than dealing with the headaches that come later on down the line. Because some of these headaches could potentially be very expensive and cause a lot of stress in your life. And I've seen people go through this who have contacted me. They would like to be here. They want to go through the process here, but they didn't realize necessarily that you can't actually do it from here and that you have to do it from your own country. Unless you're wanting to apply for citizenship. If you're applying for citizenship through Iure Sanguinis, I would then say probably it is better to apply in Italy because it very likely could be faster here if you're not dealing with one of the major cities. But the battery on my camera is just about to die, and I think this is a good place to leave this video off. So if you have anything to add to the conversation, or if you have any questions, this is as always an open conversation. And so feel free to leave any of your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian citizenship, and more, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like, I would really appreciate it, as it does help out the channel. And if you would like to help make more videos like this possible on a monthly basis, please consider becoming a monthly patron over on rafaeldifuria.com/Patreon. Or if you'd just like to help out once, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/support. Or if you're interested in one of the Pizza Pasta and Amore shirts, there will be the link down in the more info section below. And as always, I'm Rafael Di Furia, aka Rafi D is me. Thank you for joining me on another beautiful Friday night. I look forward to seeing y'all next Friday, and I hope y'all have a great weekend. Later.